let's talk about Erased.
Yes.
Which is the murder of Elma Sands. It's your podcast.
Yes.
And it's a true crime podcast, and it's set in the 1800s. And we used to live in Soho, and we know this story.
So the reason it exists is because very few people know her name, let alone the story of what happened.
Right.
Let alone why there's just this well standing in the basement of a store in Soho with no story behind it or anything. Right. In 1799, right after the new U.S. Constitution was ratified, this woman was murdered in a well in what was then the Lispenards, which is now Soho. And in the murder trial, it was the first time the new Constitution was taken for a test drive. And who were the lawyers who represented the defense? Hamilton and Burr.
Wow.
I mean,
together represented this guy, and it's the first murder trial they hired. They had a stenographer come. Was the stenographer Hamilton's son Philip's tutor? Yes. Did they get to edit the transcripts? Probably.
A little revision.
But Allison Williams, who created the show, was a tour guide in Manhattan, became obsessed with Elma's story, why we don't know about her, why we've never heard her name. In the musical, there's like a quick mention in Hamilton. There's a mention of her.
Right.
Not even of her, of Levi Weeks,
right.
the defendant. Anyway, it is a super compelling story. It has deep resonance with the way our court system works today, because that was where it all began. And yeah, I can't believe walking around Soho. It makes you feel very differently walking around down there knowing what happened.
And Tony Goldwyn is in it as well?
Yes, Tony Goldwyn is Hamilton. And and the idea of, like, you know, having watched Hamilton the musical, he's someone that we now know a lot more about than we used to know. And seeing him through this lens, though, is not... It's a little tough, because they are using the full force of their privilege at the time to defend this man, and it's so mismatched. Elma had no support. Her cousin Catherine did everything she could, that's the voice I do, to try to bring this story out into the light, but was up against just such a prodigious duo.
It's really such a fascinating story. It's called Erased, the Murder of Elma Sands. It's available on Apple Podcasts with new episodes every Wednesday. Make sure you check it out. Allison Williams, thank you for being here.